Hello, everyone. This is JD Calderon, and this is Indy Comics Explained. And yet again, I brought another fantastic group of comic book creators. So, without further ado, but before even that, hit like, hit subscribe, share out the video, let everybody know we're here. Like I said, without further ado, let me bring on the guys. And my co-host is late. Where are you? Anyway, but Mr. Dwayne, how are you?
Hello. What's going on, everybody? My name is Dwayne Robinson Jr. I am the owner and creator of Animation Comics and Entertainment LLC. And currently, we are getting prepared for our next Kickstarter, our Salvation issues 0 and 1, that will be coming out in February 22nd.
All right, cool. Mr. Brian Rodman, how are you, sir?
Hello, I'm good. How are you, man?
I'm good.
Good. I'm Brian Rodman, writer and illustrator of the horror fantasy comic book series Memoirs of an Angel. Also author and illustrator of the post-apocalyptic action comedy The Nebulizer. I am one fourth, of the Dastardly Dingoes podcast and 1/4 of Comic Book Spectrum, both on Rising Tide Network, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday evenings. And other than that, you can find me and all my shenanigans at brianrodman.com.
All right, cool. Mr. John.
Okay. Who am I? Yes, I'm John Celestri. I've been a comic strip, or rather, I've been an animator and classical animator and comic book artist since 1975. And I worked on all kinds of shows, but I animated Boba Fett in the Star Wars Holiday Special, so that's my big thing here. Worked on anything else, just says, okay, after that. Okay, that's great.
Right.
But I animated on Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, those arcade games, He-Man, the original He-Man and She-Ra series. Did a bunch of Batman commercials a while ago, and but now I'm doing my own comic books, and I'm known for Snuffy and Zoe, Snuffy and Zoe, Mega Moose, and Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. And book 2 is launching tomorrow on Kickstarter, and so and that's what I got.
All right, cool. Let's bring on Mr. Dan. What's up, Dan?
How we doing? Dan Sehn, publisher of Argo Comics, where we publish such titles as Argo 5. Well, that's a little homage cover that we had on the last issue 41. Sorority of Power.
Nice.
Which we will have an upcoming trade paperback for that on Kickstarter, collecting issues 1 through 5. So this is issue 15, Sorority of Power. And then most recently I've been part of Antarctic Press's Exciting Comics,
Cool.
where they've been publishing my stories such as Nature Man, based on the public domain character Nature Boy, and another character, Sumo Boy, I have in there, plus Big House Blues, which is a super criminal prison, and then also Weirdo. It's more of a zany madcap type character. So I've been keeping busy.
Nice. Damn it. I left them upstairs. I got your books the other day. I should have brought them with me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The last Kickstarter.
Next time. All right.
There you go.
What's up, Brian?
What up, everybody? Hey, I'm Brian Christgau. I am the author of Six Gun Gorilla, the critically acclaimed, I might add, comic book series. We are on issue number 8 right now. You can go check us out on Indiegogo. The campaign is Six Gun Gorilla number 8, Cemetery Without Crosses. I'm also the writer for the Blood Hunt Doc Salem crossover that's coming up, and I'm also the author of actually I got a bunch of stuff that's coming out this year. Some of it I can't talk about it though. Some of it's like top secret, and I'm just like thrilled to you know,
Well,
to
nobody's
be living my
watching.
dream, making comics, man.
Nobody's watching. You can just start telling us about it. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm tempted too. I'm tempted. You know, I'm working on a horror comic I can't talk about.
Nice.
Very, 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 very hush hush. So, but yeah, no, it's just a very thrilling time to be making indie comics and to be part of such a wonderful community of creators.
Cool. And my man made it.
Finally,
Our
right?
co-host.
There he
Our
is.
co-host.
Finally. This whole time zone thing really throws me off, man. I don't have to be there till 7:30. That's 6:30 your time.
Oh, can I just jump in real quick too, and also say, JD, I finally read the Oswald Chronicles. It was hot garbage. No, I'm sorry, the a-hole in me always comes out, man. It always comes out. No, really, really wonderful, wonderful work. To borrow a phrase from Clive Barker, courageous imagining.
Thank you.
And really wonderful, epic storytelling with a lot of style and a lot of heart. I really enjoyed the heck out of it.
Thank you. I mean, I didn't tell you, but I burned Six Gun Gorilla a couple of days ago. No,
Did you really? Was it cold? Because if it was cold, I'll cut you some slack there. That's all right.
No. It was a whole, evil death thing. No, I'm only joking. No, Six Gun Gorilla. I enjoyed it immensely. It was a really fun book.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, so here we are blowing sunshine up each other's butts.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I read a peer's work and I don't enjoy it, I just don't talk about it.
This is true. But hold on, I got a couple of from Damien. Good evening, gents. I'm starting a Funko Pop collection effort for John Celestri. He claims he has none, and this must be corrected. There you go.
Funko Pops are evil. Don't fall for this, John. Don't fall for this.
No.
Don't let those little things in your house. Remember the Zuni fetish doll from
I don't have room. I've got too much paper from the last 45 years.
There you go.
See,
that works.
But the Funko guys will tell you they're real small. They don't take up a lot of space, and they give you one, and then and they multiply. They become 2, and then they become 3.
I know.
And then you have 9.
Gives you a little face.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, they're chasing you around to your apartment with a big kitchen knife.
Exactly.
Don't trust those things.
No, we're talking about Funko Pops, not Furby.
That sounds like the new Chucky reboot.
Yep. Trish says, "Hey gang, what's up, Trish?"
Trish.
Howdy.
This is nice catch, Mr. Brian. All right, so let's get this started. All right, so it's a new year, guys. I know all of you have been doing great work. Thank you for that. I'm pretty sure I got books from everybody, and all of them have been good. I don't have any books from our co-host. Horrible.
Well, wait a minute now. I had an 8-page. No, let's see.
Oh.
Yeah, you do have something.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I do have. All right. That's true. That's right. Okay.
It's not a whole book, but it's something.
It's something. Okay. All right. I don't think Dwayne. Do I have? I don't know if I have one of your books. Did I buy?
I have yours. We didn't
I-
exchange one at
I think we did. Okay. Yeah. Because you know what it is? I got a long box. I got a short box filled with like a bunch of books that I got to read. So yeah, and that doesn't include the pile of books next to my bed. So anyway, woof.
Those piles, they just get bigger. They never get smaller.
They do. Now I got a question that concerns all of us within the industry, right? I mean, some of us are trying to break into like bigger companies or whatever. Some people want to work at Marvel, DC. I don't know why, but some people do. And some want to work at like IDW, some of these other companies. But I got a question here. Do you feel the industry is gatekept? And right? Do you feel the industry is gatekept? We'll see how Brian feels. Good poke face.
I'm just trying not to talk over you.
No, that's fine. You're gonna get your turn. Everybody's gonna get their turn. And For what reason? And do you feel you've been a victim of it? All right. We're gonna start with Dwayne. We're gonna start straight off with Dwayne.
Oh,
How
I
you
was
doing,
gonna
Dwayne?
say you should skip me for this one because this doesn't really, come to me. Really, I'm my own owner. I do what I want for my stories.
Okay.
So I don't have anybody really telling me what shouldn't be out and what that was actually part of my question. So, but yeah. So I'll just sit back and listen to everybody else on this one.
All right. So scrap that one and get a new one. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Brian, Brian R. Rodman.
I would say it is gate kept for sure. I think depending on what direction you want to go in, there's more gatekeepers than others. I think it is a case specific situation, but there's definitely gatekeepers out there. It really hasn't affected me very much. I mean, it's because at the end of the day, the publishers that I have submitted to, talked to, wanted to be a part of, they were all indie, so there weren't a whole lot of gatekeepers in my way personally. I was able to get into, in every single one of my situations, I was able to communicate with somebody. I submitted, they responded back. There for a little bit. I was in talks for quite a long time with a publisher, and it was all through Comic Cons. It was all through, email and just in-person stuff that unfortunately we don't really have at the moment too much of. But yeah, as far as DC, Marvel, Dark Horse especially, there's tons of gatekeepers, Image Comics as well. But like I said, I never really shot for those because that's not really where I want to hang out. So it hasn't really affected me personally at all now.
All right, cool. Mr. John, how do you feel?
Well, I was kept back. I was kicked out in about 2002 when the computers came in. So for the last 20 years, I've been sort of wandering the wilderness, chopping down my own trees and putting together my own log cabin because that's the way it is. As you get further and further away from, I guess it's like the 45 and under, you're no longer part of that tribe. So you got to create your own thing. Now I'm talking from a different perspective. I've tried to, submit, and what I have, they don't want, whether it be the type of material I draw or create, or it's an age thing. I don't know. So there's that. But gatekeeping, they're going to keep out. They're going to keep in those they're comfortable with, and those who threaten them, they keep out. Right. And I think that's what you've got to think about, is that if you're threatening them, they don't want you. Because from my experience, it's amazing how many fakers are at the top, and they don't want people to know that they're faking it. They've made it, but they're still faking it. So that's my take on it.
Gotcha. Dan, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I guess with any industry, there's going to be some gatekeeping going on, and probably as a comic artist, you can kind of circumvent that a little better than you can do as a writer or editor. Whereas, what's on the page is on the page. You can kind of break through if you really, really, really have the goods. But still, even from there, connection can help. Maybe you went to school of visual arts, and so did the current editor or whatever. But on the writing and the editorial, that becomes a little more easy for them to do, like the gatekeeping, and respect that there are people. I'm not a big drinker, but if you're a big drinker at a convention and in with the right crowd, that can, actually get you somewhere. And, we've seen some titles that are kind of messy from the big companies, and it's probably because the the gate was open for people who probably weren't qualified or hadn't the necessary skills to pull off the job. But the gate was open, and whether they have lasting power from there, because I think if the gatekeepers let you in, but you still can't bring it, then you're going to find yourself probably back out the gate. But again, if you do have, sometimes they say, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know.
We see a lot of people failing up these days.
Yeah.
All right. So Brian, how do you feel about it? I know you have been chomping at the bit.
Oh, man. Well, when you talk about gatekeeping, first you have to define what gatekeeping exactly is. There's always been a certain degree of gatekeeping, at least in my lifetime. I remember I got to know Dennis O'Neil a little bit, the Batman guy. Yeah. And he said the way that he broke into the industry was back in the day, you would write to the comic book publishers and they would send you comic book pages with empty narration and empty word balloons. And you would just fill those in. And if they liked what they read, you were in. It didn't mean that you were going to stay, but it meant that you got your shot. And I think that's what most of us want. It's that Rocky attitude. Like, if I make it, I don't make it. If I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, but I at least want my shot. At that time, the way that you got into the comic book industry, he was like, oh, it's very simple. Break into the movie industry. Right? Break into the movie industry, then you can break into the comic book industry. For a while, they were having nothing but novelists. Right? If you had a best-selling novel, you were in. Then for a little period, were you on a reality show? Were you popular on that reality show? You got a shot, right? And so it keeps moving and changing, and it's difficult to keep up with. Now they don't want guys that look like me. They don't want like white male cisgendered. I don't even know what that means, cis. But do you know what I'm saying? And I'm like a super mega lefty. I'm totally down with gay and trans rights and all that stuff. But we see people like Max Visaggio who couldn't get into the industry when he was named Brian Visaggio. Now he's named Max Visaggio, and he fails. And I don't mean to pick on him specifically, but just as an example of somebody that fails up. And now, of course, if you have the wrong politics, or what John was saying about what's known as gray listing, which I think is despicable, because you think of all of the absolute wonderful, magnificent Hall of Famers, people whose work we grew up with, that inspired us, that made us want to make comics. And now it's just like, nah, we don't need you. We'll get our artists off of Tumblr and our writers off of Twitter, and that'll be fine.
Right. Yeah. Mr. Lanning, do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I've got a few opinions, but no, I've never personally. No, I've never been. If I have been affected by it, I don't know for a fact. In other words, somebody could have said, "Oh, you hang out with different people, and I don't plant a flag anywhere, so I just talk to anybody." Oh, that's a problem, and it could have affected me, and I don't know. And that whatever, you keep it. I don't need it. But yeah, like for instance, in my day job, when I first got there, you had the older people that were there that did not want to teach younger people because it was their job security. So you've got that kind of gatekeeping going on, that they're worried about that. And then you also have just like Brian was saying, they don't want certain, because that's not what's fitting right now. That's not what their angle is right now. So you have malicious gatekeeping and you have just regular gatekeeping, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just happens to be like with John and the computers and stuff. That was the time that was coming up. Now I do see now that they're trying to get 2D animators back.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right. Because everybody knows. It's like, wait a minute, this didn't really work out that well. I have a lot of opinions about that. We're not going to.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, as far as it affected me, I can't necessarily say yes or no right now, but if it does, I'll let you know. I'll let everybody know. So.
Right. For myself, I've never sought work at any of those big companies, so it hasn't really affected me. So I don't really care.
Yeah.
And I've known, I know CB Cebulski, and I haven't reached out to him recently, but I'm pretty sure if I begged him for a job, he'd probably give me one.
But why would you want to hop aboard a burning ship? Where's a burning ship going to take you?
This is true. But I mean,
it looks good on your resume. I think that's why a lot of people want to break into Marvel and DC is because of the prestige that's associated with the name. It's kind of like when you go to a party and you tell people that you make comic books, and people are like, "Ooh, really?" Right? Because now comic books are a hot thing, whereas like Stan Lee said he used to go to parties and tell people that, and they'd move away from it.
But the next question comes in: Marvel or DC? Because if it doesn't fit into Marvel, DC, and now kind of Image, you're not really doing anything to normal people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The only thing I know from personally doing this, remember I was telling you that I've been doing this shop for about a month, at the mall. I had a little studio, satellite studio that I did 4 days a week for the month of December, and it wasn't so much that because I had my banner up, I had copies of my blow ups of panels and such in a cubicle, and people would pass by, and it was more like an old fashioned bazaar. Basically, it was indoors, and it was a business incubator. So anyway, it's interesting how many people will stop and look at your work. Elo pass by and say, "Oh, what's that?" I said, "Comic books." Comic books? Wow. But you still have to hook them in some way. And if they were old enough, I just said I did Boba Fett. So that was a thing that worked for me, especially older guys who come by and see the drawings up and went, "Ah!" So you have to have a hook in some way. That they can recognize. If you just say you're a comic book artist, well, that's nice. You do have to have something to break the ice. So anything that you can use that works.
This is true. Now, hold on. I'm gonna run through some of the.
There's an echo. Yeah.
Somebody's echoing.
There we go.
Okay. Was that you? All right. So Damon writes, the addiction is real. While hitting hard fast out of the gate. You got bots? Yes, I have bots. I have a fight.
Intended, right, Trish?
Right.
And Brian's got one comfy looking, cozy looking kitty.
Yeah, she's super relaxed right now. Like I said, she makes every show her show.
Oh,
so, yeah, for sure.
Pops writes, "Hey yo, this is fun."
Well, Pops.
Aggressively relaxing. Jesus Christ, cry me a river. They aren't hiring people that look like you. How do you explain all the guys that look like you there? So
that work in the comic book industry right now?
Well, there's still a few. I mean, have you seen Dan Slott?
Does he have hair?
He's more grandfathered in, I think.
But you also have to take into
that was from a different age.
But Russell's Jimmy's when you mention that. It really does.
But you're looking at grandfathering in too.
Yeah.
People who are already there beforehand. They just laid off a lot of people. They just laid off a lot of people who look like us. So I'm not saying that's why, but I'm just saying that has happened.
No,
go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, for me, it's like, look, I see what's going on. I don't agree with it, and for me, it's all talent. I'm like, look, if you make good comics, I'm gonna read your books. I don't care what you look like.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? I mean, I don't care. I buy books from purple people if I can. I don't care.
Yeah, right.
Well, look at thank you.
And it's not, but Marvel and DC, the thing about them are they're trying to tread water. They don't really care about those facts. That's the thing that bothers a lot of people, is they don't really care about those facts. They're chasing after money. But you look at, let's see, they just had that comic book company, Black Sands, on Shark Tank the other night. And that was an independent company that came up. That's something that you need to, that's a serious thing that you want to back and put you behind, not Marvel trying to catch the next thing so they can keep making money. That's what we're getting at.
But they aren't making money. If anything, they're losing money because, I mean, now they sell 15,000 copies, and that's considered a success. It's more that the comic books have become promotional items for the movies and for the Funko Pops and that kind of a thing. They don't care about the comic books. I mean, manga has been, drinking our milkshake for a while now. Right? Manga, Japanese comics outsell American comics 10-1. It's not even close. Go to your local bookstore. Go to Barnes and Noble, and you'll see the one that's very close to me, literally 2.5 aisles of manga and a quarter, one kind of shelf for a series of shelves for American comics. They just you think of all the stuff that they put out, over all the Captain Marvel. I mean, talk to somebody who owns a comic book store, and they'll tell you they're sending us all these comics that nobody's going to buy and that we don't want. Right? Like when the Captain Marvel movie came out, they sent them all these Captain Marvel comics. They're promotional items, and also, all the stuff that they're doing, the stunts that they're pulling, I think are to a large degree about getting press coverage, right? And that's not about selling comic books. So it's somebody's reading the New York Times, they open it up, or they're listening to NPR, and they're like, "Oh, Robin's gay. That's nice." But they don't. Those people don't go and buy the comic books.
Well, I think the big issue really, I mean, those sorts of things are issues, but the problem really with these companies is that they're no longer independent companies.
Yeah,
Marvel is no longer a standalone company, neither is DC. So the issue, they no longer have to really make profits. What they're doing is they're part of a big conglomerate. The conglomerates are mostly interested in selling T-shirts and underoos because that's where they're gonna make their real money. Right. And then they still have the portion of the business that's comic books, but they're there just to create content for the movies and just to create those stories that other people can feed off of. So even if you have a dozen not great books, you're going to have nuggets of good ideas. And the people who are really talented, who are going to be making these movies, they're going to pick out those pieces and they're going to work with those things. And the rest of it, they're like, it's okay. You understand? They can leave it, they can let it go fallow. But there are some good books being there. I really do like Donny Cates. I like his work. I think Al Ewing has done some good stuff over there. They got Sewell is another one. They got a few guys, but the problem is that the quality control is lacking overall. But they do have some good ones. My biggest issue isn't even any of that. My biggest issue is that they put out 20 Spider-Mans or 20 Batman books a month. It's just not necessary because it pushes the rest of us out. That's my big issue.
Well, that's that's been that way forever,
Well, it's been that way since Image came out, because they're the ones that they were really trying to push out of the direct market. Before Image, they were doing a little bit, but not as much. Their lines were 20, 30 books a month. Now they're 80 to 100 per company. And then whatever Marvel does, DC tries to match it. So if Marvel has 80 books, DC is gonna have 80 books, and that's just what it is. Our troll is back. I kind of like this guy though. Manga is just comics. I kind of like this guy. Manga is just comics. Anime is cartoons. You sound like a lunatic. Now, aggressively relaxing. Let me tell you.
That's such a great name.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Reach out and F with someone.
Yeah, let me tell you something aggressively relaxing. I like you because innately I'm an asshole. Okay? So I get it. So it's all good.
Yeah,
anyway.
Man, that's what I'm saying.
But Michael, it's your turn, sir. You got a question for the panel? Please go for it.
Oh yeah, let's see. I'm kind of turning into the creative side here. Now,
Cool.
seeing how, and most everybody's here is a creator, so seeing how character development is important to the story, but is it important for the main character to be the one that develops, or can it be the secondary character that fills in that gap for character development?
All right, cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Brian Rodman, you're next, sir. You're next.
I mean, hey, why not both? Right?
Mhm.
Like I mean, this series right here, Memoirs of an Angel, for example, it is a huge ensemble cast of characters, and I mean, I enjoy just juggling the character development between all of them. So, and then even in this series right here, the Nebulizer, you know, I do have a main primary character, but in issue 2, there's going to be a secondary character that comes out, and I'm going to do a little bit of development there. I mean, think about your favorite shows, your favorite stories. The ones that pop out are the ones that have a lot of meaningful characters that are, even if it has one main figure in it. Think of the original Star Wars trilogy. Luke Skywalker, main figure. But who doesn't love Han Solo? You know, Princess Leia. Those are the 2 secondary ones. We got just as much, you know, development through that arc, if not more, than our primary character. Darth Vader, huge development. You know, so I think, you know, yes, focusing on the main character because that's who's driving the story. That's the focus. But yeah, you got to pay attention to your secondary and even you know, kind of. Yeah, thank you. Words are hard.
But what I mean by that is, though, but can your main character stay the same? Can he be like JD is an asshole the entire time? But you still need to have character development in your story.
I mean, here's another great example. Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball was Goku's primary character arc story.
Right.
Dragon Ball Z, Goku doesn't change at all. I mean, that man has no development throughout that story, pretty much. And so, but everyone around him does. But he's still like, everybody talks about Goku, right? So yeah, he didn't really change. So yeah, I think it depends on what kind of story you're trying to tell.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Which is a manga and a cartoon, or I'm sorry, an anime aggressively related.
Right.
It's an anime and a manga. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a comic book and a cartoon. Dan, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, you could do it in a couple different ways. I mean, you can progress a character and then you're telling that type of story. There's also, you know, some comfort and familiarity. You know, we know that Archie's going to be indecisive. Reggie's going to be a jackass.
Yeah.
Moose is going to be a little dumb. I mean, if Moose gets a doctorate or something, all of a sudden we're telling a different thing, and yeah, he's moved on. But you know, it's kind of like some people like to just come back, like what they like about it, not to, you know, sometimes it's the development of, I guess, circumstances rather than the development of the actual character, because, you know, and you said before, I'm an asshole, whatever. Sometimes leopards don't change their spots or whatever you want to say. People remain, we know these people, right? They remain pretty consistent throughout the time that you know them. Sometimes there is a revelation. Sometimes there is a, you know, someone gets born again or whatever. But in the meantime, you know, and it's not unrealistic to have people who, again, circumstances around them change and they react to that, and maybe they do show some growth, but in a lot of respects, I don't think it's a crime to have people who are somewhat stagnate in their ways.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Brian?
Which one?
Chris? You, sir. You.
I think it depends on the character, really, right? There's some certain characters that you don't want to see change. I think one of the beefs that people have with the current Boba Fett series, which I think is fine, is that it's not the character that was in the movies, right? You're thinking like cold-blooded, ruthless character. You don't want that character to change, but everything has to have an arc now because we can't do done in one stories anymore. Certain characters, I think, lend themselves to done-in-ones much better than other characters. Batman, for instance, I don't think is a character that should really change. That it was a character I always preferred. Detective Comics to like the regular Batman series for that reason, right?
Yeah.
There's certain character like or a character like the Punisher, for instance. You really want to see him have an arc? No, right? And so then what are you doing? You can bring in other characters, side characters, and you can watch them develop, right? And if you have a character, for instance, who's very sort of stolid and they don't change, it's good for them to have a foil. A character that's going to play off them in some way. Or I'm thinking of something like the Golgo 13 stories, right? Where that guy's just a bad guy. And you know that he's going to kill whoever it is that he's supposed to kill. It's just a question of how is he going to do it? And that's where the story is. So it's something like the Boba Fett series, for instance. I would have done that as a done-in-one. But then you look at the done-in-one stories that were done in The Mandalorian, people hated those. Because they saw them as filler and they wanted to get back to the to the main story. So I can understand why they haven't done that.
I like those actually.
I do too.
I think that just kind of comes into it. Not to interrupt, but that just kind of comes into the culture now where it's the cliffhanger and we move on and it's a whole story throughout the the season instead. But I do like the one and done ones. So the prison one on the first. I think it's
fantastic. Yeah. But you know, it's interesting because you look at what TV used to be, and it was nothing but done-in-ones, right? But you didn't have continuity. That was, if anything, kind of like a problem because they wanted people to be able to just drop in and enjoy a story, and if they missed an episode, it wouldn't matter. Now you miss an episode, you're screwed.
Right.
And I think there's room for both. Yeah. There should be room for both.
Well, you know, now with streaming, you know, there is definitely room for both. So
I think so.
John, how do you feel about it, sir?
Well, I think depending upon what kind of comic you're doing, okay, we're talking a comic book, graphic novel series, or what have you. If you're talking about just having a specific beginning, middle, and end, and one arc, and that's it, and you want to carry, what is it? What's the purpose of what's your story all about? But if you have an ongoing series, you have to have pillars upon which they are built, and everything else rests on it. And so, therefore, the characters, even though they may develop a little, but they have to be essentially the same. But you don't have to make them, puppets. For example, okay, the closest that actually, and this is again old school comic book, but this is a comic strip. Gasoline Alley started in about 1920 something, it was a one panel, and it has skis. It changed over all the 70 years. The characters. They had births, deaths, characters aged, and so they had to adapt to what they were, but they were still the same characters, and so you have to have an understanding of who these characters are because they will still remain the same. I'm still little Johnny at the age of 5 from consciousness than what I am now. I've gone through a lot, but yet I've developed, but yet I'm still the same person because there are essences of each character that has to remain the same. Otherwise, they don't perform a purpose. Each major character needs to have something. You can have secondary characters that shore them up, and maybe they're foils or what have you, and then they can go through a lot of different changes. They can go yang and back and forth and so on and so forth. But you have to really know your characters to be able to do that, which means you are not just drawing, you're not just filling in spots and beats. You have to know the character so well that they'll tell you what the next point is going to happen in the story. Right. Let them write the dialogue for you.
Right.
And so that's but that comes from having written and done a lot of novels, where we had an ensemble, different ensemble casts, where we would work through all of their backstories and who they are and how much of their backstory do you reveal when, and so on and so forth. And so, that's me. So did I answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some
Heck yeah.
fantastic answers.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, Dwayne, you're in the hot seat.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there is actually room for have a secondary character to have more of the story. It's kind of similar to, in a way, to my story, Nightfall, Michael's Awakening series, where Michael is he is the main protagonist in the story, but there's other characters that have a little bit more fleshed out, because the way how the story is, the characters are introduced, they're introduced as something, and then they change to what they truly are, because they're kind of like their true identity to Michael is always been hidden, because they kind of wanted Michael to live this normal life. So everybody that he knew around him, he thought was just normal. He thought had like normal lives and whatnot. But he comes to find out they're actually way more than what they always appeared to be to him. So in the beginning of the story, those characters are a little bit more fleshed out. They get a little bit more of a dialogue where they're talking about who they truly are and how they became what they are, and the reasons why they chose to remain kind of like in the background without like necessarily telling him what exactly they were. So yeah, I think it's definitely possible. I mean, especially like things like that, and as the story goes on, those characters continue to have more of a backstory, but Michael also at the same time is kind of like in a way Michael character is sort of like the reader at the same time, where you're kind of like going along with the story and the characters. So Michael is basically the reader, while everybody else is kind of like telling their stories, and he's actually sort of, I guess you say, learning to be what he should be at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's like as he's growing and he's learning from these other characters who he thought was brother, his sister, his mother, his aunt. All these characters, they're talking more about who they are and what their lives were before Michael was even born. So it gives them more of a character development, more than Michael would ever really be, because Michael is kind of like in the middle of it all, and he's learning as everybody else is telling their story. So yeah, definitely, for sure.
Cool. Dave, for better or worse, is another ship that characters age and change. It's a powerful tool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about that one.
Yeah.
One that was mentioned before.
Yeah. For myself, yeah, I think definitely the secondary characters can grow, and certainly grow beyond what the main character does. I mean, it's a tool that I've used in the past. Secondary character, third character. Sometimes you have I have an ensemble. Like I do 12 Tales, and it's an ensemble cast. I got like friggin' 20 characters I'm working with. So all of them have their different arcs. And one of the main characters, Ravenwood, well, he does grow at some point, but I mean, it has to be beaten into his freaking head. You know what I mean? I mean, it has to be just like hammered in, like, you mother flower, like, you got to do something different. And he finally does get the hint, and it's just like, okay, but that's just who he is. He's one of these people that just goes forward and, charges with his head, and the head is made out of a big rock. So it's like,
I've had a lot of jobs about this, bosses like that. So yeah, sure.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
So would you have the sub characters? Would any of you guys have create their own comic outside of the series that they're involved with, or would you just leave it like them being secondary characters into the main character story?
It depends. I've had a spin-off for 12 Tales with one character, Gabriel, that's also telling a portion of the story for the other character, Raven. So sometimes you have those sub stories you want to give up, but it just depends. Everybody has their own thing, so who knows.
And I think a perfect example of that is Mike Mignola. My gosh, he started with Hellboy, and now he's got a whole freaking world.
Yeah,
of these characters. But he introduced a character in an issue, and then a year or two later, he'd have a whole series just dedicated to that character.
Right.
And it was
Yeah.
amazing. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
We definitely need a Lobster Johnson TV show or movie.
Yes.
That's all I'm
Without a
saying.
Yes.
doubt.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
Yes.
But that's
Uh-huh.
the thing is, you never know which characters are going to catch people's imaginations,
True.
Right.
Mhm.
True.
right?
Yeah,
I mean, you bring. I hate to bring this back to Boba Fett, but like that was like an action figure to me, and
yeah. Right.
people to me, right? It's like I never understood why people are like obsessed with that character, and I realized it's because you can't see his face,
Because of that
Right?
man down there.
and so
He
people
looked like
project.
that.
Well, I mean,
Because
I
he
think-
had
I'll
all
explain
the
to you how that what happened there. You know,
Because you had the whole-
you didn't have that figure first. You had the animation first.
I know, yes, sir. Yes, sir. But you know what I'm saying? Like in people's minds,
Yes.
in the collective imagination of my generation, you know, so people were projecting their own thing onto
Yeah.
that character.
Right.
So it's like, so then if you're going to like flesh that character out, well, gee, almost nobody's going to be happy because it's probably not going to match their idea of that character.
I will.
But
I will say this: it is kind of, I wouldn't say disappointing. It doesn't really affect me too much. But the fact is that he has the same face as every stormtrooper, so it kind of like.
But the
They'll
thing
always
is,
Van Morrison.
I think
Clone
Go ahead.
troopers. He has the
Clone
same face
troopers,
every
yeah,
clone
yeah.
troopers,
Absolutely
not
right.
stormtroopers.
Not stormtroopers.
Clone
yeah,
troopers.
well, I
I'm
think
so
the thing with Boba Fett
Like
specifically
manga
was
and comics. Yeah.
yeah the Legends, which is now Legends, which it's to many of us is the actual Star Wars story before all the sequel trilogy happened.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I think Boba Fett got the most popular was in the books and in the comics, because they brought that character, those writers and novelists brought that character to a whole nother level. I was never interested. I thought Boba Fett was super cool. I really thought he was cool, but I mean, he kind of went out like a punk in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, that's
You
what I'm
know?
saying.
Right.
But
I mean,
if
he
you
wasn't
read,
really that great until he emerged again in the books and the novels. That's where that character became amazing.
Yeah,
Right.
he showed back up again in Tales of Mos Eisley, where it actually talks about him getting
Right.
out of the Sarlacc pit. So that was really cool. So
I'll say this: I was really disappointed in the live action. In episodes 3, 2, Empire and to me, that's episodes 2 and 3. But I was so disappointed in seeing that happen. I thought, well, wait a minute. I had more screen time in my cartoon, in my animation, the out of that little holiday special thing than he had in all of those live action things. And I said, what a waste.
Yeah, I think that's how a lot of us felt when we were kids. We're like, what?
Yeah.
That ain't right.
Yeah.
All right.
But like I said, you never know what characters are going to really grab people's imagination.
Yep.
Sometimes characters can become like a yoke to certain writers, right? Like I'm thinking of Sherlock Holmes, for instance.
yes, that was
right.
one of my main thoughts when I was writing that question. Absolutely, with Sherlock Holmes,
Right?
Yeah.
And why am I blanking on his name all of a sudden?
Dr. Watson.
Yeah.
No, the author.
Arthur Conan Doyle.
Arthur Conan Doyle, right? Who wrote tons of other fantastic fiction, right? And people still wanted more and more Sherlock Holmes. He's like, okay, you know what? I'm dumping them off these falls. How you like that?
Yeah.
I like them apples, right? People still wanted more.
Yep.
My favorite Robert E. Howard character is Solomon Kane. I love Conan the Barbarian, but I put him third after Kane and Cole, right? But people, something about that character captured people's imagination. They just wanted more, more, more. So you never know.
And to add on to that, I think that's a really good point, Brian. It depends on who your audience wants. So it's important to be in tune with what your audience is saying about your characters, but it's also important to be in tune with your own characters, because there are characters. Remember, you know more about this world than anybody else. You care more about these characters than anybody else. So if there's a character that there's a lot more to this story, and from what's been put out in your series that your audience likes, hey, if it matches that kind of story or something similar, rock it. They may not give a crap about this character in the main story, but that there's so much more to this person than they do.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, this is true. All right, I'm gonna open up a question. I'm the first person who has a question. So if anybody has a question they want to ask,
I got
let
one.
me know. All right, cool. So Brian, go for it.
JD, let's start with you.
Oh, damn.
So yeah, just why not? I like to put you in the hot seat like you do to me all the time. No, but where? So when you guys find yourselves in really a rough patch creatively, right? Like you just sit down at the drawing table or laptop, whatever, writing or drawing, and you got nothing, and you're just burned out. Where do you go to get rest and get inspiration?
Rest is usually in my bed, and
more mentally than physically. Physical rest is good too. You
right? Okay,
jerk.
But I usually go read. I'll go read something. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be anything that I've read before. Sometimes it's better to look at something new. One of the things I also like to do is I like to watch foreign films, right? So I'll grab a hold of some foreign films. And the reason I like those is because, one, I don't know any of the actors, so I have nothing wrapped up in them. Two, sometimes their storytelling is different than ours. They don't necessarily do a 3-character arc. I mean, the 3-scene arc or whatever. Sometimes, they'll just do things a little differently, right? So sometimes trying to deconstruct that and look at that, that'll help me, get a little bit more creative. The other thing I do is, it's an old trick that Isaac Asimov, I read that what he would do is he would grab a book at random. It could be any book, right? It's usually a novel. Open it up to any random page and pick a word. Just pick a word, and that would be the premise of his next story. Oh, wow. That's how he did. Was it his Empire book? Wow, I'm blanking.
Foundation, yeah.
Foundation, yes. That's yes. He just picked out the word Empire, and that was Foundation. That's where he got that from. So that's what I'll do. I think that's pretty much it. If I really also want to do something, I'll look at it. I'll go back to Miyazaki. I'll watch Spirited Away or Mononoke or one of those films. Because those films just visually, they just
stunning.
Yeah, they're stunning. I watch them on a big screen, and I get up close, and it feels my field of vision, and all I see is that world, and you're just trying to look at it and just. You just see all that stuff, and it's just that's the sort of thing that excites me. So that's what I do. So,
nice.
I think we were up to Dan.
Oh, all right. Relaxation. I guess just being a couch potato in front of the TV, watching, and sometimes if it's really, really relaxing, I want to watch just some type of repeat of some old show. Came across this channel that has One Day at a Time, Too Close for Comfort, Maud. I mean, all these shows that
MeTV.
Yeah.
Just watching those, you can kind of turn it off almost because you saw him, even though it was 20 years ago or whatever, or 40 years ago, whatever it was. But, and you can just kind of, again, what I was saying before, relax in that familiarity. But as far as inspiration is concerned, even with something like that or with whatever you're consuming in media that you enjoy, not so much to say, let me do that in a comic. Well, what am I enjoying about that? What's given me that interest, that good feeling?
Yeah.
And is that something that I could bring to my book? But yeah, I just don't want to look to comics for inspiration if that's any type of thing.
Course.
Because those comics are out there, they've been done. especially when people are doing like indie superheroes, I always tell them you can't just do like what Marvel and DC have done, because people already know Wolverine, they like Wolverine, they're gonna go over there for their Wolverine. Don't try to do a Wolverine. Do something that is a different flavor. Give them something that they don't have already. So, like I'm saying, you might get that from other media, but you might also get that from real life. I think it's good to, kind of like what's going on in friends and family's lives, what's interesting happening there, and is that something that hasn't been covered in comics, perhaps? We just talked pre-show that I'll be making a move, and maybe there'll be some, type of story that'll have to be done, with aspects of that. Maybe there's a real estate agent who's going to rip off the superhero group in their new headquarters or something, and you're like, they just want the commission and all. And, it's like this whole thing that grows out of, again, something that isn't comics, that we haven't seen already, time and time again. So,
right.
Again, I just don't want to go there. I want to break that roadblock with something outside of comics.
I think that's why we got so many boring comics for a long time, was because we had comic books that were being written by people that just read comic books.
Yeah, it's a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
Basically where we are, where we're repeating everything. The thing about people who did the golden age and the silver age, what have you, they were still in the professionals. When they broke in, it was because it was a job. They knew how, they came from other walks of life. They didn't have comic. They may have wanted to do a comic strip, but then they were bringing other things to it, and so without a perspective, of having experience of life, you can't bring anything to it. And you've got too many young people who are wanting to imitate. I mean, the same sort of thing with animation. Too many people are trying to recapture the glory of the Warner Brothers and repeating all that. It's not, that's not there anymore.
Right.
No.
It's like how many times have we
make your own magic?
Yeah. It's like how many times have we seen filmmakers try to do Sergio Leone, right? Yeah. And have like this it's something like the Book of Eli, which has like this really long opening. It's just like, okay, it's just like Sergio Leone could do that because he was Sergio Leone, right? Like Once Upon a Time in the West, which opens up with like 15 minutes of guys waiting at a train station. Yeah. But it's the most exciting waiting you've ever seen in your life, right? But, it's just like sometimes you have to let certain things go and realize like, oh, that was a time, that was a place, that was an aesthetic, and you're never going to be able to recreate that. But what else is there in that you still find so captivating, that speaks to you? Those are the things I think that we could draw inspiration from.
Mm-hmm. This is true. I think, can we move it up to Dwayne? Because I think both you and John answered. So,
for me, definitely, I would say when it comes to like just resting or just getting a recharge, is music. I love music. I love all different types of music, but when it's different for me. So if I'm trying to come up with a new story and I'm very in the beginning stages of it, I always have like a feel of what I want to do when I come to a story. So I'll instantly go to that type of genre, but then I'll slowly sway myself into listening to some type of instrumental and try to build up the ideas from the instrumental way, how it sounds, the percussions, the different sounds of everything. And it really, like, I can really close my eyes and I can paint a picture from just that. That also helps me when I'm drawing as well. If when I'm drawing, I find tremendous comfort by just listening to instrumentals and, just drawing whatever. But, it's just the sound of certain songs. It doesn't even necessarily have to be instrumental. It could be a rock song, it could be a rap song, whatever. It can be even a foreign song, whatever. It doesn't matter. But for me, music is very important to me. So that's like my way of like resting or recharging or trying to get inspiration. It stems from many different things. But I will say one crazy thing that I do is I look at documentaries when I'm feeling down, or I feel like, man, I'm kind of burned out, or like just don't feel like doing something at the moment. I look at a documentary where it's about a person who went through some kind of crazy ordeal and found a way to get out of it. And I use that as inspiration, because sometimes I can sit back and just be like, well, look what he did. If he's doing that, or he or she, whatever, I'm like, what? I think I can get back to it, and I slowly get, that inspiration of just seeing what that person went through. Whether it's not even, doesn't always have to be like somebody going through like some terrible trials and then they rose up to do something. It could be just something normal, or somebody just, whatever the situation is. But I use that as inspiration as well, to help fuel the fire, as people would say. But music was definitely one. But also a lot of times when I do stuff totally outside of any type of entertainment. I'll go outside and I'll play basketball with my friends, or just walk on the boardwalk. Sometimes what me and my friends we would just walk on the boardwalk, and we would just just look at everybody, just look at how everybody's moving, and we'd be like, yo, let's create a story from this. And I would always like just watch somebody walking or just talking or whatever, and I'm like, hey, what if this person's doing this? And then I'm coming up with crazy ideas just by that, So for me, I like to come up with things just spontaneously a lot of times, and then I slowly pick it and build it to something else. But music is by far like my number one go-to, because it's endless. You know what I mean? What you can find with music.
All right.
Broadway shows as well. I like watching Broadway shows because not more so the older style ones, because the writing, the lyrics, and certain things that they would deliver, the way what they're saying, you feel a little bit more of it, So that's another thing that I like to watch as well, is Broadway shows. One of my favorite Broadway shows is Les Miserables. And lyrics, I probably pronounce it wrong. My girlfriend always says I say it wrong. But
Les Miserables.
Yeah. So that's one of my favorites.
The Miserables.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I used to say
there
when
it
she gets me. You're saying it wrong. The Miserables, and then she just look at me. But yeah, that's one. So just music.
All right, cool. So let me just hit these off. Entropy Comics, greetings, community. JD, I'm grateful that you have been such a huge contribution to the comic community. You continuously help artists, creators. Without tire your awesomeness. Thank you. Yeah.
There it is.
Okay.
There, $5 are in the mail.
Take it. Take the compliment, JD. Take the compliment.
Love Me TV. Okay, there you go. And then I had thanked Entropy, and they said absolutely. So there you go. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I try to do what I do. I do what I can. Right.
Well, that's why we love this community, is because everybody's trying to help each other. And it's very much a pay it forward community. Mm-hmm. Whenever somebody's like, oh, dude, thank you so much. You helped. It was just like, oh, you, I'm like, you don't owe me nothing, dude. Right. Help the person that's coming in behind you. Right. And that's what we all do. And, it's, I don't know. It's encouraging. It's like, yeah, it sucks that we can't all hang out and like be in the same physical space together. But boy, isn't this internet a wonderful thing?
Yep. Now hold on, before we go on a tangent, Mr. Lanning, you didn't answer the question.
Oh well, look, I thought you forgot me.
No.
There's a lot of things I do. One thing I do is take a shower.
Cool.
A lot of thoughts and things that gives me time, and really what it is just quiet reflection, give you time to think or whatever, and then act some things out. I come out of the shower, my kids are looking at me weird because they heard some dialogue, things like that. But when I'm it depends on what I'm creating. If it comes to doing art, I have a bunch of art books that if I feel stuck or I can't get what I want, I'll sit there and I'll look through a bunch of different artists to see how they've done something, study that art or whatever, and that will inspire me, or I can learn, putting two and two together how a method is done. But when it comes to writing, if I write, especially, I don't care about my first draft. My first draft is basically getting emotion. It is getting everything down that I want to say, even if it doesn't make sense at the time. I just want to get it out and get it down, and so it's almost like automatic writing. You just put your fingers on the keyboard and you just go. And even if you come down the road, you're like, "What the hell is this crap?" It's okay. I can pick something out of it. Usually,
Right.
Usually, so
Yeah. Usually, I say the art is in the edit.
yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah. Good writing is good rewriting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, for me, this might sound maybe weird to you guys then, because for me, I can't have it written down, because if I have it written down and it's not like, if it's not like completely done, that's a whole different story. But say, I'm like halfway or whatever into the story, and it's not all the way done, and it's just there. I'll constantly add things just to add things, just because I'm coming up with something cool. Oh yeah, that's a cool idea. This is cool. Oh yeah. Oh, I can add that. Oh, I didn't even, because when you have no limitations to the story, there's no one in your back of your mind saying, "Oh, you can't add that," or "You can't say
right.
that."
Right.
Your mind, for me, just runs wild, especially when I'm sleeping. That's like where all the ideas come from. I can't tell you how many stories I've come up with, like right when I'm about to lay down. I'm like, yeah, it's time to go to sleep, and I'm laying down, and I'm like, yeah, see, wouldn't that be a cool story? What about a guy that can't sleep? And I'm like, wait a minute, that is a cool story. Then I'll come up with a song that might go with that story. Then I'll come with a movie.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, what am I doing? And the next thing I'll do, I'll wake up and I'll turn around and it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I didn't even go to sleep. Why? So for me, like, I try to stay clear from writing, like I always keep it in my head, and like, for me, I always try to keep like the basis of the story. Like what is the main thing of like, what are you trying to get from the story? I always try to have like a subplot to it, or something where you actually can possibly learn something as well. But it's not always like pushed in front of you, like, oh look, you're learning something as you're reading. It's just deep down in there too. But I always try to use something that will help me, like inspire me, whether it's an emotion or whatever that I want to consume to the consumers or the reader or whatever. So that's always one thing. But to write it down, I stay far away from that. it's like a really crazy thing. I'm telling my brother, I was talking about this last time I saw him about the same thing, because he's like, yo, you should just write it down. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I can't do it. Like we've talked about so many different stories over the times, and I was telling him about a new story that I came up with when I couldn't sleep, and he was like, "You should write it down." And I was like, "No, I shouldn't." And he just going back and forth.
Wait, but you know what? I actually heard something a couple weeks ago about what Stephen King said about keeping a notebook about your ideas. He said, keeping a notebook for your ideas is keeping a notebook for your bad ideas.
There it is. There it is.
He said basically, if it's a good idea, it will continually come up to you in your mind.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it is. That's the best way to explain it for me.
When I was in college, I remember having this teacher I really respected, and I asked her like which ideas do I go with, and she said the ones that haunt you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that. Yep.
I think everybody can feel that one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, now before we move, question, John, but
yeah, John. You didn't ask me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, go for it, John. Go ahead.
Right, JD.
For relaxation, it could be watching football. It could be a sport thing. Anything that's nothing to do with drawing. Or if I want some, just to relax, I'll go for a walk. Everybody's done that. But what happens is that when I either I'm taking a shower or I'm going for a walk, these little things will just keep on percolating in my mind, which is fine. But as a relaxation, I'll just watch some TV. It doesn't matter what I'm watching, because half the stuff almost all the stuff I've seen, and the stuff that I haven't seen, I'm really not interested in. I'm saying, okay, it's a treasure hunt for me. Okay, I go on a treasure hunt online. It's streaming just to see if I can find something that is interesting to watch. and that's a treasure hunt for me.
Mhm.
But I'll go and look through all my collection of books, from whether they be hardback or stuff from Winsor McKay, or looking at Bill Tytler, or I'm looking at my old Disney books, or my Captain Marvel, my Fawcett Captain Marvels, or anything that I have. I'll go through it. I'll look at the Crazy Cat book just to see stuff of other things that I'm not working on. Okay, and so that's how I'll do my relaxation. But if I'm stuck, I don't get stuck.
Mhm.
And the reason I don't get stuck on anything is because I've had to do things to time and to hit certain goals. And when you do that, if you're a newspaper writer, you got to hit your deadline, and you know that there's certain things that you've got to say within that article, in the first paragraph, the first 30 words. And that's what I go with. I say, okay, I'll just keep on doing. I'll just, I'll start. I take my Post-it notes, and I'll just run. I'll just do random thoughts. It's like, okay, so and so does such and such. Take that, slap it on a 8.5 by 11. To write another thought, slap on top of that. Before I know it, I've got 25 Post-it notes on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I'll start, seeing what's there. Keep on going. That's how I write.
Yeah.
I don't, that's all I'm doing, and so therefore keep on priming the pump, and just keep on thinking about it, and then you start saying, this don't work. I'll put that over there. Well, oh, wait a minute, this is interesting. I'll go with that. And then on, and then I will know how much space do I have to, how many pages have I got? And and that's the same thing as writing to time. When you write for TV, you have to hit commercials. You have an infinite amount of time to the second as to when you could be there. So you have to make sure that what you're hitting is all prime story. Otherwise, if you're just fleshing it out, well, who cares? You're boring.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So that's so I have that thing of just keep on doing, especially, and when you're animating, you have to hit your footage. You have to animate. So you have to start, what is your problem? You look at the scene, you listen to the dialogue, figure out what the mechanics are. There's a lot of stuff that isn't creative, but is part of the bookkeeping and the structure of whatever you are doing. Concentrate on that structure, and then allow the characters to start speaking to you, the plot points to come in. That's how I work it. Otherwise, you can, but that's my muscle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's my muscle.
Right.
So, okay, there you go. Sorry.
That's cool. No, that works. That works.
And one other thing is that I don't worry about it if I haven't got a solution to the problem. By the time I put my pencil down, at 5 o'clock or whatever it is, I put it down. I'll go to sleep, and invariably, it will work itself out. The next morning, I will have the idea. I will have the solution to it. Because I've done everything. I've done all the thinking. I just haven't connected the idea. Something else will come out. But if you're immersed in it, if it's too much, you're just draining yourself.
Right.
So
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it's like it's something that you learn in martial arts training, for instance. It's sometimes pushing doesn't help you. Sometimes you just got to relax your body.
Yeah.
Right.
And you got to relax your mind, and then it'll come to you.
I've
That's
found
how it is when I look for my wallet.
I've found that the place where I write the most is the shower.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah,
can't tell
exactly,
you how many times the shower's done, I run to the laptop. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
Don't picture that you'll bring your corneas out.
No,
But
it's
You'd
the
be
water,
surprised, though.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. Like Wes Craven was one of those guys. I was like, "Where do you get all your ideas?" He's like, "The shower."
the shower
right.
every time. Yeah.
That's
I
it.
think
Hello,
that was
Sarah.
proven scientifically.
What up, Sarah? I'm sorry, Dwayne. What did you say?
No, I was saying I think that was proven scientifically that's where a lot of people kind of get their creative juices from, is from the shower.
Yeah.
But one last thing I would say that I also look for inspiration as well is anime. I am a huge anime fan, and like I don't try to do like generic action ones. I always try to read the bio and see something that's like, that's different, and watch that and just pick that part out and just try to really see where they're going with that. And if either it's good or bad or however it ends, I would like, okay, you know what I would do different from that? I would do such and such. And that would help me as well, because it's keeping my mind, that creative juices going, not outside of my own, but then I could just easily just transfer that or those ideas or whatever I'm thinking of into something else that I want to do. So
you hit it. Hi, Sarah. You hit the nail on the head there, man. Like, I think fan fiction is a great exercise. Like, for example, the Snyderverse, as far as we know, is dead. Right, that's done. Well, me and my buddies, we love the Snyderverse. We do, and we're not going to get an ending, more than likely. So I wrote one, and I shared it with our little circle of friends. It was so much fun, and now in my head canon, I know how it ends, and we're good, and I can move on. Closure.
I think that's the problem with the comic book industry now, like the mainstream comics, is that it's mostly fan fiction. Do you know what I'm saying? So fan fiction's fine as fan fiction.
Oh, yeah, it's a good exercise for sure. Yeah, but yeah, I mean,
not to diss on it.
No. I think there's a place for it. The problem is when all you're doing is just you recycling the same characters and just like, oh, what if this happens? Then you don't. It's not really storytelling. It's just like, oh, this is a cool thing to do. Like, oh, what happens if Batman becomes a regular or Superman becomes a regular guy and goes to the grocery store? Nobody cares. You know what I mean? Like nobody gives a crap.
Yeah.
Even 10 years, they'll come out with a comic about the Snyderverse or whatever the case is completely.
They might.
Just like
They might.
do.
But
Right.
it's not going to be
Do
better
that
than
sort
mine.
of a thing
So.
now.
They do. So.
So Carlos says, "Hey fellas, would have loved to have joined you, but it's the last week of the NFL season. My Chargers are playing for the playoff.
Got to have your
We
priorities.
understand,
man.
Carlos.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, and the shower has sprung so many stories. Dreams are a second, close second.
Yeah, dreams.
All right,
Oh
Carlos.
yeah.
I don't dream. I don't know why. I really
Next week, Carlos. Next week.
Well, Dwayne, you definitely do dream. Otherwise, you'd be psychotic and you'd
I
be
mean, like,
hallucinating. You just don't remember
but
your
it's not like that many. Like I can wake up and just that's it. But when I do have those dreams, like sometimes when it's like a real deep dream and it's like I wake up and I'm still in a dream, I'm very exhausted though. Like I can like I'll be sleeping and it feels like I wasn't really asleep. Like it feels like I was either like still actually doing the dream or whatever it was, but then I'm waking up and I'm exhausted.
Well, that's when you know you're in the Matrix.
right.
There you go.
Oh, Mr. Anderson.
There you go.
But so I don't though. I don't know why. And then when I do, a lot of times it's never a good dream. It's always something bad. I don't know if that means I'm a psycho or
No.
I'm told this.
Well,
so
we're all psychotic. So
Yeah,
Well,
it's gotta be a little bit.
remember that your dreams, because I know some people are freaked out by like their freaky dreams. That's always the dreams are basically your mind's exhaust pipe. Right? It's letting off that stuff. that's
I guess that's good that I let it off.
Hey,
Those dreams, I'm like, man, that's such a bad dream. Damn.
Man, Disney Cinderella taught me that dreams are a wish your heart makes, and that's what I'm going to stick.
Disney Cinderella as opposed to like German Cinderella where like, her evil stepsisters are like cutting their toes off.
I want
the
the
slipper
version of that. Right? Cut the toes off or yeah.
Hack off your heel. There you go.
That's what it is.
Yep. And then at the wedding, the crows come down and peck their eyes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. So let's get this real quick. There's no spoon, lol, with the Matrix reference.
There is
All right.
no spoon.
So here, I got a question for you guys. Do you prefer creators' indie work or their mainstream work? Right? And I'm going to go first just to give an example. So do I prefer Frank Miller's Daredevil or Sin City, right?
Mm.
Tough choice. I prefer Daredevil, but I love the Sin City stuff. Don't get me wrong. But if I had to choose, if I had to pluck one off my shelf and get rid of it forever,
It's not even close.
right, I'd have to choose his Daredevil stuff. So yeah, I think Mr. Brian.
I mean, obviously, it depends. I think somebody like Jason Aaron, for instance, I much prefer his indie stuff. I much prefer Scalped, which I think deserves way more attention than it gets, which is basically a crime saga, a crime comic that's set on a Native American reservation, which is a world that that hasn't been shown a lot.
Right.
And I think that's like, his masterwork. But of course, a lot of one of the reasons a lot of comic book guys that come from the indie world go into the mainstream world is so that they can let people know that they exist. And hey, you like my Thor comic? You like my my Batman? Come check out my my indie stuff.
Yeah. Gotcha.
It depends.
Oh yeah, no, I hear you. Well, no, and also the other thing is, I would like to know one example. So if you have, your creator, so and you gave it with
Jason Aaron, yeah,
which is good. Michael, you're the co-host, so we're gonna skip over you, Mr. John.
Oh. No snap.
No. It's co-host, second to last, and then me, the person who has to question last.
That's
so.
fine.
John, what do you got?
I got nothing. Okay, wait a minute. All right, let me. Am I limited by the decades?
No.
Okay.
No.
I prefer Simon and Kirby's Fighting American to Captain America.
Okay. There you go.
And the reason I say that is because they did Fighting American and basically as a self thing. They set up their own shop, and they weren't working for Marvel. They did their own thing, and many times all of the romance stuff or really the westerns or whatever they did under their own heading. And they were very different from stuff that they did for DC or for Atlas. So they're okay. That's what it. But you can feel the difference, I think.
Right. Well, also, sometimes, like you were talking about how having feathers, having like structure, how that kind of like forces you to be more creative.
Yeah.
I think that, some people thrive better in that kind of an environment, and then other people thrive better with the gloves taken off.
Brian, what do you got?
Man, you stole my example, but I was actually going to go the other way. I prefer Sin City over, as much as I love Frank Miller's Daredevil stuff and his Batman stuff, except for All-Star Batman and Robin that can die in hell. But I think Sin City and 300 are probably his best work. In my opinion, to me personally, Sin City probably captured my imagination and really, I don't know, for me, that was a moment, that series was like a wake up moment for me. Like, holy crap, this is what comics can be, and so I think me personally, that's where I go. And it's honestly, it's hard for me to pick an example because a lot of the indie creators that I follow, they never really stepped into the Marvel DC realm. They've just kind of stuck to their own. But I think Frank Miller's Sin City is probably the best example I have. But I think what Brian said is absolutely true. I mean, it just depends on the type of person. Some people need more structure. Some people need an editor, hanging over their shoulder to give them that good pressure to create something great. And other people can, they're better on their own, or they're better, leading their own team.
True. Okay, cool. Dwayne, before we move on to you, John, I know it says he has to bounce. So
Nice seeing you again, John.
Yes. So John, before you bounce, please let everybody know where they can find you and your work, sir.
Okay. Tomorrow I launch book 2 of the Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. It's on Kickstarter for 30 days, and I start tomorrow. And see if you can get me over the $10 mark.
Are you?
Oh, you'll make it.
Hey,
over
dude.
that. No problem.
Yeah. I think you'll do it. You'll do okay, sir.
Yeah.
And hey, I gotta say, guys, book 1 was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. As a fellow Angel story creator, it was awesome. So go check it out if you haven't already.
Thank you, Brian. I'll tell you this here. It's another 52 pages, but I went and said, okay, now how many pages? How much further is this story? Well, this particular arc comes to a conclusion. I still have another 200 pages worth of story to tell in this arc. Nice. So there's about 300 pages worth of material in this arc, and we didn't start. We're just starting, on that.
Awesome.
So, but once again, I am 72, so that's I can't draw too fast, and I've only got so many more. I've only got another 30 years left, so I figured. So I plotted it out. So
there you go, man.
Hey, 72 is the new 62.
Yeah,
for sure.
Can we get the first volume if we missed that?
Oh yeah, it's part of that. Yes, you can. It's all part. You can get. I will always, on everything, on each one of the crowdfunders, you will be able to get both copies or singly if you want. So therefore you're not forced to get both. Or either one. You could. I will allow that. But the first perk will always be the one that I'm pushing, the newest one. So in this case, the first perk is book 2, and then so I try to make sure that everybody understands that. Right. Anyway, yeah, that's cool. That's great. Thanks a lot, guys. Great talking to you.
Be
well.
I'll see you in the great beyond in another couple of weeks or so.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Thank you, John.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, I love that dude.
Yeah,
he's
that
awesome.
was awesome.
John's incredible. Mr. Dwayne, so how do you feel? What do you prefer? Which creator? And do you prefer the indie or their mainstream work?
Yeah, so for me, I don't know if you guys all know, but I kind of grew up into this comic book world a little differently. So I don't know too many creators, as but I do know some, and so I'll go with the most generic one, and that's Todd McFarlane.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, for me personally, I feel that to have your own story and show your creative juices outside of the limitations that you have from whatever big company that you're signed to, I think is always going to be a little bit better, because it's just from your own brainchild, and it might inspire someone else to make something else that can either take bits and pieces from that story and create something totally different from that. So for me, I would say, I mean, I'm a huge fan of his Spider-Man work. The art style is really cool, but Spawn to me was really just a different type of story. There's certain things about it that I still don't like. Me and my brother, we always argue about it, but so for me, like I enjoy more of the indie creator aspect of it, to be able to really let loose and be able to show and do whatever you want without any limitations. I think that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I do have to jump in
Dan?
here really quick and say, because I need to redeem myself. My gosh. So Mike Mignola, who is my favorite creator, is obviously the biggest example here, because he worked Marvel and DC, did a lot of work nobody liked. And then
that's not true. I love his Marvel DC work.
According to him,
Cosmic Odyssey?
Cosmic Odyssey.
Oh, no,
I love Cosmic Odyssey.
That was the shiznit.
I like this stuff.
I like this Hulk.
But
Hulk was great. The Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom story. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're fine.
Sorry.
Compared to Hellboy, though, he took, he went from doing Marvel and DC and then went to Hellboy and created pretty much kept Dark Horse alive. So yeah.
I mean, listen. I mean, what's funny is I love Hellboy, but I love the BPRD just way more.
Oh, I do too, man. I love Hellboy more, but I love all of it, man. I think have you read any of his Baltimore stuff yet?
Yeah, I read all of it, bro.
Yeah,
like, I get those thick hardcovers that he puts out, man. I have a row of those things, man. I love those. Every single time they come out, right on the list.
Yeah.
Now, if we could just get an amazing screw-on head too.
Right. Yes. That would be awesome.
I'm still looking for the animated series. I haven't found that.
It's coming back out.
It'll
be out for release again sometime this year, I think.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dan, we were up to you before you got cut off.
Oh, okay. For the most part, I'm going to say that I'm prefer people's original material. Examples of that would be even like Rob Liefeld, where that juggernaut of Deadpool and X-Force is, what so many are going to clamor for, but his Extreme Studios properties, like Youngblood and New Men, Brigade, that's the stuff that, I don't know, I get into that a little more. Even Todd Nork, who started off on New Men, he had his own thing, in the indie books, and most people are going to be like, oh, Titans, I love your work on Titans, when, at his like convention table or whatever. But, they're not going to really be down for his independent work, which is something that I'm going to prefer. But there are some occasions where, let's say John Byrne, who, with that X-Men run with Claremont, and comparing that to like his own Next Men work or something like that. Sometimes, the characters that they're given are gonna propel them a bit further than maybe something they come up with on their own. But then you flip back to the other direction where, for me, Elementals was so great, and I really never really got locked into Fables for Bill Willingham. So it's hard to make a definitive answer on that. I mean, I enjoyed both Dark Knight and 300 and Sin City. So going back to that example, which we were using before, I find it a little hard to definitively say if I'm going to probably lean towards people's own creations, but there will be some examples where their work on a corporate character just outshone what they did with their creator on.
Yeah, I mean, look, I struggle with it as well. I mean, Walter Simonson, Thor or Star Slammers, and I'm like, damn it, right? I'm like, or even his Ragnarok, Thor or Ragnarok. I'm like, oh, come on, man, really? You're gonna make me try to make that decision, but I do like Thor. I love his Thor run, so it's just like his original Thor from Marvel. So it's hard. It's like choosing a Watchmen or League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, right?
Right.
You're gonna sit there, pick, or even a Watchmen and Miracle Man, right? In that case, I choose Miracle Man though. I actually do like Miracle Man more than I like this Watchmen. But yeah, I just love these different questions. Hold on. Carlos says, I prefer the mainstream work. Nothing has been produced by mainstream first creators that has blown me away indie-wise since the original Image guys. All right. Cosmic Odyssey is one of my favorite 80s minis.
I misspoke on that, by the way. My bad, guys. Yeah, good stuff in DC, Marvel, for sure.
I'm a Mignolaverse fanatic. There you go. But I think, it's funny, though, with this statement, I prefer mainstream work. Nothing from mainstream first creators has blown me away indie-wise since the original Image guys. I think with the exception of that is Mike Mignola. Because as much as I liked his Marvel stuff, I think Hellboy is much better than any of that stuff. You know, and like I said, especially the BPRD stuff. Forget about it. Like I said, that stuff I find incredible. That's the TV show I want. Like, where's that one?
Yeah, man.
You know, that's the Netflix show I want. You know,
Well,
I
maybe
like
we'll
Hellboy.
get it. There's so many things now that used to be inconceivable that like now
Right.
are quite conceivable.
Right, or even to go back to that same question, like, you know, Mage versus Batman from Matt Wagner, right? I would choose Mage.
I would say Grendel, but
Grendel, exactly. Yep, Grendel.
I was gonna say Paul Pope with that Batman 1,000,000. I thought that was one of the best Batman stories there was, and I never really got locked into his indie work.
Right, it's a little on the weird side, but I do like his indie work. Mr. Lanning, you're up.
All right. I have a couple of people I think about when this question comes up because it really does depend on, like, okay, for instance, I'll give you guys Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison's work on Doom Patrol is above none. I mean, it's amazing. I love it. But he can bring that to Happy, and that's in itself its own thing because it depends if the creator gels with who they're writing with. And what first came to mind is who's getting real big now. So I guess I'm basic. Anyway, it's Scotty Young. Now Scotty Young did really well writing Rocket and Groot. I love that series. I love his run on it. But I will take I Hate Fairyland or Middle West over Rocket and Groot any day. He's in there writing Strange Academy. He's not doing a bad job of writing Strange Academy. But if I had to pick between Strange Academy and I Hate Fairyland, I'm going to go with I Hate Fairyland because it plays to his strengths. Sometimes these creators, when they're in mainstream, they get certain characters that play to their strength. Animal Man, Doom Patrol, these kind of crazy ones, and they go out and they do their own crazy indie books. It works well. But if you take Grant Morrison and you put him on Batman, it might be good, but I feel like it's restrained. Does that make, that kind of thing? So it really depends. They can gel with a mainstream character, but it really depends on the mainstream character that they gel with.
True.
So
it's like
I can't decide which one.
Garth Ennis on Punisher or Garth Ennis on The Boys?
Oh my gosh! What's the difference? I mean,
well, he's one of those guys that's been able to kind of straddle that fence very effectively. You look at a certain filmmaker, like somebody like, I don't know, David Cronenberg's the best example I could think of, where he was making these incredibly strange little indie horror films, and then started doing Hollywood stuff like The Dead Zone or The Fly, and yet his mainstream stuff is just as whacked, and he managed to like there's still David Cronenberg movies.
Yeah, but you don't see David Cronenberg doing Remains of the Day. You don't see him because he might. Now he could probably pull it off. I'm not saying that he can't, but it won't
it's
be
the kind of stuff he does now.
Open. Yeah.
I wish he'd go back to doing David Cronenberg, since only he could do David Cronenberg. You know what I'm saying? It's like Eastern Promises, like Stephen Frears, 100 other directors could have done that. You kind of like, but then again, as a fan, it's like sometimes we want our artists to stay in their lane.
Yeah.
We're just kind of like, we'll have more of that.
Yeah, they get tired of it. It's true. I can see them getting tired of being that person. I'm the weird guy. I'm the Tim Burton or whatever the case is, and then I'm going to go direct a musical called Sweeney Todd. So
right.
All right. Well, Mr. Lanning, you're up as far as questions.
Oh boy, Brian took one of my questions, so I'm going to have to see if I got a good one here. Let me see which one here. Okay, here's a fun one, and we always hear about how this comic would be a good movie. But what movie do you think would have made a better comic?
That's really good.
Now this could come into it would have been a good movie, but the budget wasn't there. It would have been a good movie, but the editing wasn't there. If they had made it a comic, it could have been more grandiose.
Right. Huh. It's interesting. I think is it Dwayne or Dan? Who's next? I know one of you guys.
Doesn't
No?
matter.
All right. We'll go with
I'm a little-
Dan. We'll go with Dan first. Go ahead, Dan.
Let's see. Movie that would make a good comic. It's a toughie.
Mhm.
I mean, I can think of a few movies that don't make a good comic. Where, like for me,
That'll
watching
work too.
Godzilla, for instance, I can always
Yeah.
get into the movies, but somehow it just seems a little limited on the page. And I don't know what you guys are talking about with this Boba Fett and everything. Everyone knows that Star Trek is really, that is the top type of franchise there for sci-fi. But again,
Was.
doesn't go as a good comic. Even Star Wars for me, a lot it doesn't always translate. So I mean, it's Hollywood is littered with these things that make good movies but not great comics. I'll go with randomly Hancock because I thought that was a pretty
Oh,
good movie.
wow.
Yeah.
And
That's
Excellent
actually really
choice.
great. Excellent.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah, that was a really good choice.
made for a good comic, and it could have made for even continuing tales.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
as a series. So that'll be my choice. Where again, I could keep going on about the bad comics with the good movies. But that one springs to mind. In the opposite.
Yeah. No, that's a
Yeah.
great. That was a great answer.
Yeah.
No, yeah. All right. Brian, well, Wolfgang von Christgau.
All right. I promise I'm not just like throwing this just to like throw you for a loop, but there's a obscure movie called from the 70s, an American low budget blaxploitation / horror / kung fu movie called The Devil's Express. And it's about this dude who's a martial arts instructor, kung fu instructor in Harlem, and he goes with some of his students to go to China to study, and they accidentally unleash a ancient Chinese demon that follows them back to New York City, and it takes up residence in the subway stations, and periodically is taking out victims. And so our hero, played by the great Warhawk Tanzania, has to go into the subways to fight the monster. And it's one of those things. It's just it's made in an incredibly shoddy way. It's like you can tell they had no budget. The fight choreography is horrendous because mostly they're doing katas with each other, right? It's just right, and don't get me wrong. This is a fun movie. I recommend it. You can watch it for free on Tubi. It's awesome, right? But I remember watching that with a friend and they're going, damn, this would make an awesome comic book. Because in a comic book, you don't have those restrictions, right? These guys were making a movie with like no money, right? On the fly. China looks like upstate New York because that's where they shot it, right? But it was one of those things where I was just like, damn, you guys get an E for effort. Right. And you put that in a comic book and you don't have any of those restrictions. You can do anything. China can look like China. The monster doesn't have to look like a guy that's like caked in paper mache. Right. It could be the Chinese demon. It could be a proper scary Chinese demon. So yeah, I would say Devil's Express.
Cool. Okay. Nice. I think we're at Mr. Rodman.
I'm gonna kind of stay on the old movie train, I'm gonna go with any Hammer horror film.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love the horror movie, the Hammer horror movies. One in particular that I remember that it might be my favorite is the Brides of Dracula.
Yes.
I remember actually thinking as I'm watching the movie for the first time, man, this would be like, it's good, but it would be so much better as a comic. And I feel like you get the right artist on that book, it could be terrifying.
Right.
And I think
They gotta
because
look like Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee though. It's got.
For sure. Yeah,
Baron Meinster.
Yeah, it does. It can look like the actors, sure, but
Right.
you definitely you can do so much more because a lot of those were low budget. But the stories were just they lean themselves to like the pulp aspect of comics that I think each and every single, especially what was the last one with Peter Cushing in it as Van Helsing when he
Satanic Rites of Dracula.
No, it was the very last one. Christopher Lee wasn't in it. It was he goes to China.
Oh,
Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. Yes,
Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, which was a Shaw Brothers Hammer Films co-production.
Yes,
That's the one where
that
their
would have
arms
been
are
a
extended
perfect.
and they're jumping.
No.
That would have been a perfect comic book. It would have been.
Oh
so
my
much
God!
Fun.
Yeah. Y'all, if you haven't seen the Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, it's awesome.
So good.
So good.
It's awesome.
If they'd had Christopher Lee as Dracula, it would be perfect. By the way, eat your heart out.
Oh, look at that! Nice.
That's awesome.
And I'm sorry, gotta hop in also and show you my custom-made Captain Chronos Vampire Hunter figure.
Oh,
Nice.
very cool.
Wow.
I'm sorry, you said Hammer, so
Yeah, man.
was
No, I'm a sucker for Hammer films, but I've
too.
always thought they would make really good horror comics.
me too.
Yes.
Me
yeah,
too.
I can see that.
They did actually do a Captain Chronos comic.
Did they
Which-
really?
Yeah, which is illustrated by Tom Mandrake, and it's a lot of fun. I was just mainly pissed off that I wasn't the one that was hired to write it.
All right, cool. Dwayne, what do you got?
So I had a few while I was thinking. So the first one I was thinking of was Terminator. I feel like that would be a cool comic book. The Matrix would probably be another good one. Evil Dead would probably be good.
Oh, yeah.
But what would be
Well-
better? That was the question. What would be even better? Like,
No,
what
I
was
think
sort
the
of
movie would be
disappointing?
better. I think the movie would be a little bit better visually, at least for me. But I think it would also it would be a good start though for a lot of those movies though to start out as a comic, and be made into a live action movie.
Argumentatively, you could say that the Matrix kind of did. You talk about
Right.
the Invisibles, but
Yeah.
But there's so
That's-
much
that's
stuff in
discussion.
there.
I think Dwayne's onto something with the Evil Dead being a comic first.
that would be
I think,
cool.
that would have
Yeah,
been
I
pretty
think
cool.
That would
But
be cool.
There were Evil Dead comics.
There
Even
were,
the-
but-
the
Ash
but
versus
the movie changed.
Reanimator.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
for sure.
yeah.
I think that's all I got for right now. Well, come
All
on.
right.
That works.
All right.
Evil
Look,
Dead's good.
I got one, and I even have the team, because if it's not this team, I don't think it'll work. So it's Event Horizon.
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
Oh,
It has to be done in black and white
yeah.
by
Okay.
Kyle Holtz
Oh,
illustrating, okay, and Grant Morrison writing.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
All right,
Okay,
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh my
You got me
God.
on that one. That's perfect.
Cha-ching, that's cash money right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
right.
know. So yeah, if I ever had $1 billion, I could put together our teams.
Yes.
I could put together teams. Easy. What
That'd be
do you
bad.
got, Michael?
Oh boy. Okay, there was a B movie that came out. It's been a while. Maybe 10 years ago. It's called Ink. And
I watched I keep watching the first 30 minutes and I never finish the fucking thing. And I've been meaning to finish it forever.
yeah, it's weird because
Mhm.
basically you're dealing with a lot of concepts and everything in it, and
Yeah.
and I think it would be better translated as a comic book than what they had the ability to do, because basically you're looking at you're dealing with death and you're dealing with the afterlife, and basically this guy or thing kind of comes in, steals this little girl and takes her, because if he could steal it, he's ugly, and if he could steal her and take her to these like TV headed guys, he could become one of them, and the concept there. But there's also like a guild or whatever that they kind of look over these children and stuff. So the one that looked over her is now trying to find her in the afterlife, and she has to, and a blind guy who's able to listen to they had so much stuff in there, and I believe it. I can't make it coherent, but they did in the movie. And I think it would have been a better comic book than it was a movie. Not just simply for the budget. I think they would have had a better. Sometimes that budget can be limiting and can hurt your storyline. And I think if they didn't have that budget there, they could have expanded on that storyline a lot better. So, who knows? If you're listening, please come out with an ink comic. I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. Or you could just steal that idea and just like name it something else.
I don't want to. I'm gonna call it lead. You know.
There you go. So John Celestri says, Brian Robin, thank you very much for your wonderful recommendation of Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. Great book. Go pick it up, guys. Comes out tomorrow.
Yep.
And then Carlos says, Hancock would have been mine because he's the inspiration for American Revere. Also, I throw in Time Bandits. Time Bandits.
Wow.
Yes.
Ooh,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Almost any Terry Gilliam movie would make some kind of great comic. You know, from even Brazil for that matter.
Oh wow!
Brazil. I think also Lair the White Worm.
Oh,
yeah.
The only movie that I rented and watched all the way through, and then when it ended, I rewound it, and then just pressed the play button again and watched the whole thing all over again.
I got one.
Hell, Ken Russell.
Yeah, I got another one too.
White Zombie with Bela Lugosi.
Oh, well, you could do that. That's public domain.
I would say black and white and a Mike Mignola style. I think would be perfect. Yeah.
Horror Express. It's another one that would be really good, I think. Wow, there's so many.
Dwayne, what do you got?
Equilibrium.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Equilibrium would have been a dope ass comic.
That
nice.
They could have expanded on that a lot more. Absolutely. Yeah. I totally see that.
Excellent choice.
Now, I got one more question. We'll wrap this sucker up.
Oh, wait, can I go to the question?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So it's kind of a two-part question. The first question is anybody ever like afraid to like try to do another genre? Why or not? And the second question is, how do you know when you have enough pages for your next comic issue?
Okay.
Good question.
All right. Brian, I think you were next. Oh no.
Which one?
Were you Mr. Wolfgang?
What was the question again? Sorry.
So the first question is, are you ever afraid to try to do another genre outside of the one that you've created? And the second question is, how do you know how many pages is enough for your next comic?
Well, to answer the second one first, I would say that how many pages is enough is how many pages it takes to tell the story, right? And we're lucky. We're not restricted to like the 24 page format anymore, although I found it very useful. And I'm sorry, what was the first question again?
The first one was,
I smoke a lot of weed. You have to forgive me.
Yeah. So the first question is, are you ever afraid to try to do a genre outside of the ones that you've already done?
Yeah.
But to ask a question to the answer that you gave me, so you don't take in consideration of like printing, like, you know, like you're not too afraid of like, oh man, if I go set over this amount of numbers, I'm gonna have to worry about how much the printing is. You don't take that into consideration?
No, not really, because I don't find that that's that much of a factor for us right now. just in terms of general pricing. As for genre, I am a horror guy to the core, but I've never been good at writing it, right? And so now I'm like, I got hired to write a horror comic, right? Awesome, scary as hell, because I'm like, I'm the horror guy, and but I'm not especially good at writing horror. But now I have a shot at writing horror. But I think that fear is a good thing. I think that very often as creative people, if there's something that we're afraid of, that's the direction that we should go in.
I mean, really, that you already kind of have the idea for the story right there, what you just said. You can base that story off of what you just said.
Yeah, true.
How do you feel about romance?
Oh, that would be... Oh, well, if you... I've always thought that, like if there'd be one type of scene that would be terrifying for me to write, it would be a good sex scene. I think that's really tough. That's extremely difficult. I've seen it done very rarely well. And, that's why, you usually like to just kind of have the lights go out, But sometimes, in some cases, it's justified, or in rare cases, you even need to see it.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you're thinking like, okay, I got to show how this works between these two people, but otherwise it's going to be sticking in people's minds, and they're going to be thinking, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah, that's a good one, because in the Nightfall Michael's Awakening story, the original story that I had was a lot darker, but I decided to lighten it up because it was my first comic, so I wanted it be able to be, every age could really read it.
Sure.
So I lighten it up a lot, but there is the original version has like a sex scene in it, but it's because they're werewolves and they're kind of like turning at the same time. So it it kept the horror theme because they're kind of like biting each other and scratching. So it was more like a sexual kind of thing.
Yeah, and werewolves are all about sex anyway.
Like, the way how it was like slowly integrated, because it's not like really rapid. It's really kind of like more sensual, even though they're like, kind of clawing each other and things of this nature. I thought it would be really kind of cool to see, because I really haven't seen that too much in comics.
Right. And that way you can also play with the whole attraction revulsion thing that horror does so well.
Right. Yeah, I think with sex scenes specifically, not to like keep this going, but like I think you got, unless it's just a straight porn comic, JD. But
snap!
No, I've written I've written quite a number of sex scenes, and let me tell you, they all work. They all work.
I think specifically in comics, you have to have a message. I think you have to have a message to send through the scene. Like I think a perfect example, one of the best ones that I've ever seen was in Saga issue 1. You've got the general of the Robot Nation and his wife, are going at it, and then like he can't perform anymore, and then it goes off into, you get a glimpse into their relationship. There you see how their intimacy works, and it completely sets up his entire dynamic before he enters the story, and it makes him vulnerable. Wow, that's hard to say. Vulnerable from the get-go. And so I think if you have something like that to say, I think that's an easier way to have a sex scene in it.
Right.
All I'm gonna tell you is this: I'm gonna do porn. I'm gonna do porn.
Well, that's different.
It has to do three things.
Yeah.
It has to revolt you on some level. It has to attract you on some level, right? And it has to make you horny on some level. So it has to do those three things. If it doesn't revolt, if you do not look at it and it doesn't disgust you on some level, it's not good porn. And if you're not attracted to it at the same time and turned on by it, still not good porn. You got to do all three of those things.
That was kind of how I felt when I was actually drawing the scenes out.
I was gonna say that sounds like the
thing. Exactly.
This looks kind of crazy with the scars and the clawing and the biting each other, and they're like half turned but not all the way.
Right. No, that sounds great.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on over to Mr. Rod, the other Brian, Mr. Rodman.
Okay. So the first question, the genre question. I think yes, it scares me to a point, depending on what the genre is. I have a background in writing scripts for theater and things like that, so I kind of got the fear knocked out of me when I did a lot of those during those days. So I'm not really scared per se. But again, just to keep up with the trend, if there is a genre that is that I think would be difficult, it would be romance as a genre, not like just a sex scene or something like that. Like I think writing a story that is about just strictly romance with no other fantasy or horror or anything aspect to it, that would probably be difficult for me above everything else, and I would be terrified. But hey, I'd try it, sure.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
What was the second question again? I'm sorry, Dwayne.
About the pages.
Page count. So I always start off with at least 24. When I'm writing my script, planning ahead is key when it comes to page count. So like the perfect example, my current series, Memoirs of an Angel, the issue that's about to come out that was just backed on Kickstarter, and then the next two are all going to be extended issues. This one that I'm working on currently and the next one are both 32 pages, and then the third one is going to be 52 pages. And the reason that I figured that out is because that's how much story I have to tell in this to finish up this volume. And I can make those decisions, right? Like I don't have an editor or a publisher saying, no, it has to be this page count. Screw that. I can do what I want. Right. And but I always start with the standard 24 because I want people to get the at least the standard for their book for sure. Mm-hmm. So, and as far as printing costs, it does, I think it does absolutely, especially if you're just starting out, take that into consideration when you're going to launch a Kickstarter or when you're going to do an Indiegogo, any kind of crowdfunding, make sure that you've got that page count meeting that, you will be able to afford printing, if you hit that goal. So I think that's huge to think about as well as far as crowdfunding.
All right, cool. Mr. Dan?
Yeah, I'm open to going into other genres and stuff. I guess there's almost a fear of success with something like that. And the fact that I did like a kid's comic, and I thought to myself, if this thing like kind of hits, then I can't really be going back to what I prefer to do. Now I'd be stuck doing this thing. And, it was actually consistently the top seller at the conventions, and the least bestseller online. So I don't know if that's just parents with the kids who are, saying, they want the book and there it is. And, whereas the kids don't have access maybe to the credit card to make an online purchase. That was Pickle Man. And it was like, okay, let me do something for my niece and nephew there. And just, a whole bunch of kid gags or whatever. But it wasn't something that I would want to really continue. Which again, it did. I don't think a second issue would have done anything at the conventions anyway. I think it was just kind of like a novelty item. So while I wouldn't fear another genre, I don't always have an interest in another genre. Another case in point being, you'll see some companies will get a license, and I'm thinking to myself, man, like, that would be a lot of exposure and everything like that. But I'd kind of be like, I hate having to do the My Little Pony comic. I mean, if people are digging it, that's great. But for me, I'd be like, I got to really slug out this My Little Pony issue. It's not really in my heart, And again, I grew up at a time of Jabberjaw or something rather than My Little Pony. So, and they're not beating down the door for a Jabberjaw comic. But as far as page count is concerned, I've done the 8-page stories and anthologies. full issues, miniseries, ongoing series that's up to issue 41 right now. So really, yeah, I'm not going to really let a page count dictate what the story is going to be. And I think on a print on demand type of situation, there's really not an astronomical change in the price. Maybe more so in black and white to color, but not so much. Page counts don't really make monumental changes on the pricing. And I mean, if you're dealing with margins, even on crowdfunding, and you're printing it overseas, if you're on the margins of the page count being the loss or gain of a profit, then it's probably a negligible difference. That's not going to be life changing. So I think the service, being in service of the story, will be more important than sweating out the page count.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Very cool. Mr. Lanning?
Yeah, I think if I was afraid of a genre, it would be comedy. Honestly, because you have to be able to have the gags, and it depends on the comedy, because there's so many levels of comedy. You could do a slapstick comedy and not be afraid of I guess intelligent comedy. There's different types of comedy. I'm not in that genre. I don't know, but but being able to provide those laughs in a comic, I think would be terrifying. I wouldn't not try it, but it would definitely be something I'd be hesitant about. As far as the page count, to an extent, I think it would matter. But if it goes over 24, I would just look at the next one up and fill those pages with character designs or something like that. As long as the story doesn't suffer from the page, as long as the story doesn't suffer, the page count won't affect me that badly. So, letters from the editor or something like that.
Gotcha.
Right.
For me, it's I think Westerns, even though I really enjoy them, right? I think a Western will probably be one of those things where I might have a hard time. Unless I mix it, and it's a Western horror romance, that I could probably swing, but just a straight, Clint Eastwood style, Western, I might have a hard time.
See, I could do that in my sleep.
Really?
But
that's what you do. Yeah, that's true.
But if you ever want to try something like that, and I think this is just something worth just sharing with the group, don't forget that if you find yourself in such a position, there are books that you can read that will give you some guidance. And for instance, if you, just as an example, if you wanted to do a Western, I would send you a copy of Six Guns and Society, which was like an academic book that was written in the 70s, but reads beautifully and breaks down the genre at a Jungian level. And I always find, not to get a little wonky here or anything like that, but Jung is one of those people, if you take that approach to any genre, you find out what is the core. Really quick, let me just recommend this book. It's called The Seven Basic Plots, and this covers all of the genres. Right, everything from comedy, tragedy, horror, you name it. It's covered here, and it's a Jungian approach. You only have to read the first half because the second half is pretty much just like a repeat of the first half. But yeah, it's by a Christopher Booker. If you're ever stuck, this will bail your ass out. If you feel like you're in a genre that you don't feel completely confident in.
Right, that's
cool. The reason why. Can I speak?
No.
Shut up, damn it. Yeah, go ahead.
No, because the reason why I asked is it's not that I'm per se scared of doing any type of new genres because
Right.
currently the next comic after the Salvation series is our comedy. And like Dan was saying, how he has different kind of receptions to it, where he makes sales in the conventions, but not so much online. I kind of have that. I'm feeling that kind of same vibe sometimes when I post early stages of pages of Brook City. Not too many people really know or care what's going on because I guess it's a comedy and it's sort of like the comedy doesn't really start in the first couple of pages, so maybe that's another reason why too. But when we go to conventions and I show people the characters, people are like, oh man, I love that. What is that about? What is it about? Oh, that sounds crazy. The best way I can describe Brook City is what I tell people is that it's if Family Guy and the Boondocks had like a love child, that's pretty much what Brook City is.
That's awesome.
I would read that.
Right, you see? But when we post things online, people are like, they like because of the artwork, but they're not really invested or really want to try to know anything about the story. So what I tried to even do one time was I gave just a quick picture of both of the characters, Showtime and Taye Diggs, and still people were like, but I don't know. So, but I just feel because maybe, like I said, it's one of those type of stories where it's kind of gears up to the comedy because it's very more of like it starts out like this is normal day characters, normal day for these two characters, and then they see this guy Yoji and their whole world gets turned upside down. But there's so many pop cultural references that happen after that part. Right from the beginning, there's you're like, oh, I know that. All right, I know what that's about.
In that case, if I could just jump in real quick, I would say that your characters are going to need to recognize them or what they embody just by looking at them. Right. Do you know what I'm saying? Right. Like you look at the Trailer Park Boys, for instance, and you get them like that, right?
Yeah.
If people are looking at your characters and they're not getting whatever it is that you want to convey, you might want to rethink their design.
Mm-hmm. The characters are based on me and my brother.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because when we were younger in high school, we used to always talk about like how we live in New York, and there's so many crazy things that happen to us in New York. And you're like, man, that just happened. That happened. So we were always talking about like we should write this down and just like make a comic book or animated version of it. And that was kind of what we did, but we ended up doing Salvation and Nightfall first. And, at first we were like, man, this is like a totally different thing. But me, I was like, I don't really care. I want to do different genres. I know JD was saying Western. I actually have a Western story that I'm writing called Jeremiah Graveberry. It's more like not really historic, but it takes certain historic aspects that happened during the time what the story is about and involved with the character. So because the main character is sort of like a outlaw. So one of the things that I show that introduce into the character, well, now he's kind of known because of TV and whatnot. Bass Reeves,
of course,
actually chasing the character because he's a part of a gang. That I found out about that was an actual gang. So that was one of the things, but it's a lot of things that go involved with it. But I like that challenge of writing different genres. I posted something earlier, I think maybe yesterday, saying that I see so many people posting superhero stories. It makes me want to show my own. Because, but for me, not to take shots at anybody here or anybody that might be seeing this later, I feel like the superhero genre is so easy. It's like a real easy thing to write. It's not really like challenging outside of any other genre to me personally, because it's you don't really stray too far from that whole kind of thing that you've seen over and over and over and over.
Well, that's the problem. Is how do you do it and make it interesting? Yeah,
right.
That's a genre I'd be afraid of.
That's what makes my story different, is because I take those things that I've seen and I'm like, well, I can make it different but still the same. And I kind of incorporated a lot of my personality into that too, because I think that that's a good bridge between what you see now and what you don't. For instance, the main thing I could say without really giving the story away, is that a lot of times the main character in superhero stories, they're like the guys that, are, the outcasts. This character is not an outcast by any means of the imagination. He was actually one of the nice guys, the cool kids, call it what you will. And something happens to him that, changes his life. But yeah, so I think that's one of the things that helps really kind of put that character really different from it. And also his abilities is also determining not really on how his personality is, but it does play a factor as well. So I think that, but again, I just feel like superhero, that genre is just kind of easy to me. So that was one of the main reasons why, me and my brother, we sat down. I was like, let's try something different. Let's try something that we have never done before.
Outside of your comfort zone.
Right. And horror was one of them. When I first came up with the idea for Nightfall, you guys might laugh, but I was watching Twilight. And I was just like, this is terrible. This is really, really bad. And on so many different levels.
Bad art can be more instructive than good art.
The supernatural aspect, just
sparkly vampires.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But for me, I was like, I've always been a huge fan of werewolves. I have it tatted on my arm. So that was kind of where I wanted to go with the idea, but I was like, I can make a love story, an action story, and still have horror elements with it, with the werewolf genre. And that's kind of what Nightfall is. There's a lot of things going on with the comic. It's a slow burn because I wanted it to be that way. I wanted it to be really mysterious, where this character doesn't know what's going on in this world. He thought that he was just a normal college quarterback, but his life changes, drastically after he finds the truth about what he is. And as that story goes on, there's more elements that get introduced. There's, like I said, there's the romance aspect. There's huge action that starts in the next issue, along with issue 2. But I don't want to, it's not a promotional thing. We're just talking.
Remember, if you like the name of the book, if you want to learn about westerns, Six Guns and Society. I forgot the name of the author.
All right, so we got a couple of things here. Damien, having a research and gotten a license, the work involved can be way too much to deal with. Not the question, but just throwing it out there. Carlos writes in, comedy for me too. My brother was always good at it, and I've always struggled with comedic writing. So there you go. All right, gentlemen. We're done.
JD's ready to tap out.
Yo, I got a burger calling me. You have no idea.
Me
too.
All right, so gentlemen, thank you so much for look at this, Mr. Joe at the end. Brian Rodman working hard on Nebulizer 2 as he talks. Nice.
Joe, I got a special announcement just for you coming soon, buddy. So don't worry.
There you go. All right. So, gentlemen, like I said, we're at the end. Thank you so much for all coming. But before we go, Dwayne, please let everybody know, about yourself and where they can find you and your work.
Yes, you can find me on our website, animationcomicsent.com, where you can find all of our comics, the Nightfall series, the Salvation series. You can also look out for our Kickstarter campaign, where we're going to be introducing the newest versions of, there we go, Salvation issues 0 and 1. We're also going to be doing a few variant covers. We're also going to do a few cool Kickstarter rewards as well, including hoodies, hats, things of that nature. We're also going to be doing a bundle where you can actually get a taste of everything that is ACE, which is the Nightfall series, the Salvation series, and we're also going to be showing you a few pages of Brook City and Immortal as well. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Animation Comics ENT. You can find my personal page at Dwayne Robinson Jr. And that's it.
Cool. Dan, where can they find you and your work, sir?
Okay, it's Argo Comics, and I got Argo 5 right here. There's Argo Comics, and I have Argo 5 up to number 41, Serenity Power up to number 15. And as I said, I'm going to be doing a Kickstarter for a trade paperback, collecting issues 1 to 5 of that. I also have another imprint called Thunder Zone, and Damien has been making some comments as part of that. And he has Realm Rex coming through Thunder Zone. This is Nature Man, who I printed a couple issues of Nature Man, but that story has been picked up by Antarctic Press in their Exciting Comics
Cool.
title.
Yeah.
So I have pretty much 4 stories running through that, starting in issue 9 up to the present. I've had, again, stories running in Antarctic Press's Exciting Comics. So those are my main outlets right now of where you can find me.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
Brian, Wolfgang, Ron.
You can hit me up. I'm on the Twitter and the Facebook at Brian Christgau, just one word. And go check out the campaign for Six Gun Gorilla Volume 8. Yes. Cemetery Without Crosses on the Indiegogo. You can go there also if you don't know if Six Gun Gorilla is something you want to be reading or not. You can download the entire first issue for free as a PDF. So
nice.
Go check it out.
Yes, and you're gonna want to check it out. It's a good, really, really good book. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks. People. I've been fortunate. People really connect with it, and yeah, that's not me boasting. That's me being really grateful.
Listen, you put in the work. You put in the work.
Yeah, no, that I have.
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Lanning, where can they find you? Your work?
Of course, at my link tree here, here, wherever that goes. Which connects to my Facebook, Twitter, DeviantArt, such and such, on and on. Also, I have my first comic that I have ever done, complete comic, even before stuff that's been published now, is now going to Kickstarter finally, starting January 13th, and it's the Rejects through Silverline Comics. So check that out. It will be a collector's issue. Just letting you know. And yeah, that's what I got.
All right.
Awesome.
Cool. Mr. Rodman.
Well, I am
the other Brian. I'm sorry.
The other one. Yeah.
What's up?
I am Brian Rodman, author and illustrator of the horror fantasy comic book series Memoirs of an Angel. It's like Lord of the Rings meets The Exorcist. We've got 7 issues out now. 8 is on the way. And I also have a post-apocalyptic action comedy, The Nebulizer. It's about an asthmatic who he and his feisty AI-controlled nebulizer suit fight post-apocalyptic mutants, and it is a ton of fun. It's something like Ninja Turtles meets Mad Max, and yeah, you want to follow me? Head on over to brianrodman.com. I've got all my social media stuff there, Patreon page, everything is at the top, and yeah, I've got a cool blog series that just started. Yes, I'm blogging now. It's wonderful. But other than that, you can find me on YouTube with the Dastardly Dingoes and Comic Book Spectrum.
All right, cool. Well, my name is JD Calderon, and you can find me here weekly on every Sunday with Indy Comics Explained and fantastic comic book people, indie comic book people at that, because we don't just let anybody in here. And you can find me on Facebook under JD Calderon, Twitter, DeviantArt, and the OswaldChronicles.com and TallTalesOnline.com. So thank you so much, everybody. It has been fantastic. Thank you guys. All of you were great.
Thank you so much.
And we will see you all soon. All right. So have a good night, guys.
Peace and love, everybody. Peace and love.